What's up everyone, a very good morning. This market outlook is going to be a little bit different because I noticed that in the previous market outlooks I tend to repeat myself a lot, and now I'm going to take less pairs and go more in depth with them, so that is more clear for you guys what I am looking at. And yeah, let's get into it. So on the DXY you can see on the daily that we now have created a new fresh area of supply after grabbing that for our liquidity over here, right? So now I'm looking for confirmation from this supply zone in order to go short once again, or if we just trade up higher, I will wait for a liquidity grab and then maybe get a new supply zone getting created in order to trade down lower again. So this is what I'm looking at, and if you look at the 1 hour, you can also see that the 1 hour swing is bearish, right? And that we have some internal liquidity laying above this high. So what I'm now looking at is to take that liquidity at least, then maybe trade in towards the supply zone, which is also located at the weekly open, and the weekly, monthly and yearly open are all points of support and resistance, right? So if we trade in towards that weekly open, price could easily just trade down lower, but of course you will need to wait for any confirmation in towards the downside. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. Definitely first need to take out the liquidity above this internal liquidity high, and from there we would like to go short. You could also try your premium versus discount tool from this high in towards this low, and then you can see that we are kind of over here, and from there it would be a nice point of interest to go short again. So going over to Euro USD, let me remove a bit like this, so you can see that we have bullish order flow, right? And now we kind of have this supply demand zone, but I would like to see this high go. Then after this goes, I would like to see internal liquidity getting swiped, which is going to be formed under this low. And after we swipe that liquidity, I would like to see some confirmation, and then price will be ready to go long again in towards that weekly supply, which I'm going to show you. So first on the daily, you can very clearly see that I am waiting for this to go and then this new demand zone to push price up higher again. Okay, if you then go over to the weekly, you can see that we have fresh supply over here, and that we now have one weekly fractal break to the upside, created demand which is pushing price up higher, and then after we break this high, we now then have created a new demand zone which is going to push price up higher. And I think that in the long term we can trade in towards this weekly supply and at least take out this weekly liquidity. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm looking at. Now I'm going to try out this liquidity, but firstly I would like to see this high go, right? So I'm going to put my alert on top of this, and then after that, like I said, just wait for the internal liquidity to get grabbed in order to fuel the next move up. So then going over to GBP USD, we now have a new demand zone created which could push price up higher because it took liquidity, right, over on this low, and that means that it could be a strong demand zone which could push price up higher. We also now have created some internal liquidity, and then we can trade up higher. How have we created internal liquidity? We trade up higher, then we trade down lower, then up higher, meaning there are some liquidity or stop losses under this low. So once we break this, then we can even trade up higher. Now keep in mind that I am willing to wait a little bit more, and I will wait for this demand zone to get hit on the daily, then maybe get a tap in towards that yearly open. Yes, and from there, like, take this internal liquidity, boom, and then some confirmation on a lower time frame in order to long in towards the daily supply with these liquidity highs which are still open. So I am still going to wait for this daily open demand zone, but of course price could already trade up higher from this demand zone. So I am going to keep that in mind. But of course I will let you guys know inside the Discord if there's any further development on this pair. Okay, going over to AUD. AUD just grab liquidity above these highs, so it could trade down lower, at least in towards this demand zone. From this demand zone, price could trade up higher if there is any confirmation, of course. But if we see this demand zone getting tapped and we grab liquidity under this low, then this would be A plus to go long for me, because then we swipe early buyers which are now stepping inside the market, right? And there's also a daily demand zone on the daily, of course. So get a swipe, take that liquidity, then look for a 4-hour confirmation possibly, and trade up higher in towards those liquidity highs. Okay. So yeah, of course we are also 1 hour bullish, and like I said, we could just trade up higher from that new daily demand, which is this demand zone, and from here we could just like get something like this and then trade up higher. But of course I will need to see how price is going to react inside of this demand zone, because if price just trades like this, then I will just look for a long from this demand zone, of course. So going over to Euro AUD, you can see that we are swing bullish, right? And that we now hit discount prices, so we could trade up higher again. That's why I'm not looking at any shorts to take out these liquidity lows, because it's risky with this discount. But then again, I will wait for those lows to go, for a tap in towards this demand zone, and from here I will look for confirmation in order to trade up higher, take at least these liquidity highs, and in the long term maybe make a new swing high. Okay. For now, if we maybe get a tap in towards this supply zone over here, take out these liquidity highs, and then get some confirmation, I will also possibly look for some shorts to take out these lows because it's really ugly in my opinion, and this demand zone is also still open, which we could easily trade in towards. Going over to GBP AUD, as you can see, this supply zone is still open, so we could just trade, is still getting respected, so we could just trade down lower again. Now this demand zone is something that I have in mind, because after we tap inside this demand, we take a liquidity under these lows. Then after we get some confirmation, of course, we could trade up higher and take all of these liquidity highs and trade in towards that monthly open. Now why am I looking for longs? Because we are swing bearish, so why should I look for any longs, right? Let me go over to the daily and then it will be more clear. So as you can see, we are swing bullish, and now we can trade up higher. Why can we trade up higher? Because we just made connection with the discount prices right over here. So now price is maybe ready to trade up higher in towards its swing high. You can also see that we have some bullish order flow, right, like this, and now this demand zone is in control, which could push price up higher again. So if you now look at the 4 hour, you can see that we already grabbed liquidity under this low, and now got the 4 hour fractal break, and now this demand zone is pushing price up higher again. But let me see. Yeah, we still have some bearish order flow, because first this supply zone got respected, which pushed price down lower into a low. Now this supply zone is in control, but after we swipe that supply zone, then we are able to trade up higher again. Or if we get a move in towards these lows, then we get a fractal break or an order flow switch, and then we would also be ready to take the highs out. So keep that in mind before you are going too long, that this supply zone still is in control at the moment. Going over to CAT, CAT has this open supply zone over here with some liquidity laying under, and I think that you could easily trade in towards that supply zone. For now, I'm looking for a tap in towards this demand zone with this internal liquidity laying above. After we grab that internal liquidity, get some confirmation, a fractal break, then I would be ready to look for longs on CAT to trade in towards that open supply, because you can also see that we are kind of bullish, right? We also had some consolidation, then we had a manipulation in towards the downside, and now we could see some distribution in towards the upside. On the daily, you can also see that we grabbed lots of liquidity under this low on the weekly, right? This liquidity and this liquidity. So now price should at least trade up higher and maybe take those internal liquidity highs. As you can also see, we now created a new demand zone, which is possibly going to push price up higher again, right? So this is definitely something to keep in mind, and then we can trade up higher in towards those liquidity highs. So yeah, exactly the same as I explained on the 4 hour, right? Just this internal liquidity go, boom, 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 in towards this supply, and in the long term take out those highs. So going over to EuroCAT, it means the opposite. As you can see on the weekly or on the daily, you can see that we grabbed, and let me remove a bit so it's more clear. We just grabbed liquidity above this high. So for me, we could easily trade down lower in towards this liquidity point, right? We already took some liquidity under this low, so we could already be ready to trade up higher. But then again, there was a lot of liquidity above this high, because it took liquidity itself and it broke some structure. So that's why I think that this low can be broken. But if you look at the order flow, you can see that we are order flow bullish, right? We respected the demand zone, and now we had a new demand zone, which is pushing price up higher again. So after that we break this supply zone, then price could be ready to trade up higher, right? But first we need to break this supply zone, because otherwise price might be ready to go short again in towards that liquidity low. So going over to the 4 hour, you can see that we are swing bullish and that we could trade up higher. We now also have that bullish order flow on the 4 hour, and I think that price now could be ready to trade up higher, because we created this new demand zone, and after we grab some liquidity, then we could be ready to take out those liquidity highs, right? But for now you can kind of see that it is in a range. There's some liquidity above, some liquidity below, so it's not A plus to go long and it's not A plus to go short. So I would just wait out for what the price is doing, right? And just come back next week. Going over to my last pair, gold, you can see that we had bullish order flow for a long time now. We are at the all-time high, but I think that after you see some confirmation, you can still go long and eventually in towards that 3000 level. If you look at the 1 hour, you can see that we are swing very bullish, right? And that price could be ready to trade up higher again from this demand zone because it took liquidity, which could fuel the next move up. Now we still have this low open, and now we got equal lows because this Asia low just barely didn't break this low. So I would wait for a swipe first, then get some confirmation in towards the upside, and then I would be ready to take those highs out. So that was it, guys. I hope you liked it, and let me know in the comments if this one was nicer to watch than the previous one, because I felt like that one was really chaotic. And yeah, let me know. See you in the next one. Ciao.